Unfortunately, just before the awesome tunes that I've been throwing out this evening, we had to take a little break because we lost contact with Drayton Michaels, our very own Pitbull guru. But hopefully he's there now. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello. Yay.
Hello. Hey, there he is.
All right, you guys are cutting out. You're cutting out quite a bit. So
okay, right. If we have a problem, we're going to get you on another day. But we'll see how we go for a little minute. Okay. Can you hear us? Okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you guys fine.
Fantastic. That's perfect. Right, that's what we're after. So, sir, you are known as the Pitbull Guru. So tell us a little bit of information about that. Where have you picked that nickname up from?
Well, actually, that is something that was bestowed on me. The website is called Pitbull Guru, so that means you could be one too. I don't like to just single it out so that the focus is on me. I mean, I'm just an educator, and my motto is if I can do this and I'm doing this, then I don't think other people should be held back by taking a legitimate way with their dogs and learning information and just, really being the best person you can be for your dogs or as a professional and not faking the funk, so to speak.
Fantastic, and I like that ethos. That's it's a sensible way to think. It's not an elitist thing, is it? It's all about love.
No, not at all. And I think that on that subject, we need to completely eradicate the mysteries of dog training and dog behavior and how people are able to have success and how other people may not be having success. I'll give you a perfect example. Recently in a class, there was a young woman who was working on leash walking with her dog and training her dog to heel, and I simply just adjusted her mechanics by giving her some verbal feedback, and she did it in real time, and the whole class saw that the dog was now walking better. And I asked her, I said, are you into sports, or do you do something that requires you to move, like dancing? And she said, yeah, I'm a cheerleader. So this is a person who obviously has, some gifts related to her mechanics. But, if you can bend over and tie your shoes 10 times in a row really quick, you could pretty much train any dog. As long as they're, safe and, you're doing safe things, then you should be able to do it. Fairly easy on a regular basis, I might add.
Fantastic. And it's not only you should be able to do it, it's important that you do it. It's education, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things I've been saying recently is that you wouldn't have a child and not send him to school.
And you wouldn't send a child to a school that was using harmful methods and, degrading the child and yelling at you for not being a good parent. You'd hightail it out of there in about 2 seconds. So I agree. Proper schooling.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there, sir. Now, we're not just talking about any dogs. We're talking about the Pitbull. Now, the Pitbull has such a negative association with its name. What's your view on the Pitbull?
Well, it has a negative connotation depending on who you talk to, and essentially the media is to blame for any negative connotations. And I mean, this goes back from the town crier all the way up to any major news outlet. Dogs have always had reputations, and the thing that people need to understand first and foremost is that pit is a behavior. They needed dogs that were able to be in the bull pit and the herding pit and the fight pit, and these dogs were bred to be very hardy and to be very safe around hectic and often dangerous, life-threatening situations such as 1,700-pound bulls, running loose that they had to go corral. Now, what's very important is that if you look at other dogs such as a retriever or a hound, those names are also associated with a behavior. Now, what people need to realize about dogs in general is that when a dog is bred for a purpose to work or to detect, scents or what have you, 90% of those dogs that are bred for that purpose don't really make the grade when they're tested legitimately for those purposes. And that even goes for fight dogs. Now, this comes from Dr. Karen Overall, who is on a number of boards and committees that deal specifically with working dogs and working breeds. And people need to remember that Pit Bull Terriers or Staffordshire Bull Terriers or Amstaffs, these dogs were bred to work. The vast majority of them could not handle the rigors of the cattle ranching or the fight pit, so they became the nanny dog because they had to do something with the other, 90% of the dogs that weren't really equipped or were able to handle all that other stuff. So that's a quick nutshell in my view of the Pit Bull Terrier and, dogs who might be bully dogs or what have you. They're dogs. and they're no more challenging or risky or any other adjective you want to put on them than any other type of dog or a substantial dog that might weigh a certain weight. When dogs get in trouble, when dogs get in trouble, it's because people, either through negligence, ignorance, lack of education, lack of care, whatever their situation is because they've led the dog into that situation to now be in a human environment that is problematic or a nuisance or whatever it might be. That's it. It's not. It's all a lie, a myth. It's a fabrication of the media. There's no bite epidemic. There's no breed epidemic other than there's 6,000 plus dogs a day being killed in U.S. shelters because of a certain type or look and things like that. And that's the epidemic. It has nothing to do with the actual dogs themselves. It's people, and people make laws and decisions because they don't really know what to do. So it goes back always to a lack of education.
And this is quite interesting because it's the argument is that guns don't kill people. People kill people. It's on a similar line. So, but hold that thought, and we are going to be back in just a moment. We need to take a short break, and we're on the line. Good evening, sir. And as I say, thank you very much for joining us. Now, before the break, you were giving us a bit of a rundown of the Pitbull in a nutshell, if you like. Now, over here in Spain, the Pitbull's not an illegal dog. You're allowed to own one, but it must be on the potentially dangerous dogs licence or list. In the UK, they're completely illegal. You've got what's called breed-specific legislation. What's the story in America?
Well, in America, we have laws similar to that in various cities, and we gained some ground with states like Ohio, where they take it off the books at the state level, but then there's lots of problems with smaller towns and municipalities. Essentially, breed-specific legislation is passed out of fear and ignorance because people don't know how to educate their communities so that dogs and people are safe. If you look at the math of dogs and humans in America, there's some say roughly 77 million dogs and another 300 million humans. 20 to 30 people a year die from dog bites, mainly elderly or small children left unattended. And there are 4.5 million dog bites reported to emergency rooms via the Centers for Disease Control. So when you look at the numbers, right, and you look at the number of people who are, severely bitten by dogs, it's not that many. And the problem is that dog culture and dog training and dog education is such a fractured thing that's filled with everything from legit science to complete nonsense. By and large, dogs are not protected. They're just worshipped. So they don't have the same ability to be understood as humans do. And it's a cascade of failures is what it is that it's never just one thing. And it just ends up being, well, let's just ban them and get rid of them. But if you look at Colorado, for example, that's a place, Denver, where they ban them and there's still thousands of them. And the bottom line is if you really want to have a safe community and you want to have less incidents or less people being concerned, educate everyone. One thing I remind people of is that the people who hate dogs, the dog haters, they want the exact same thing that the dog lovers want. They want a safe community with educated people and dogs in responsible hands. That begins when you rescue a dog, if you choose to purchase a dog, if you have dogs in your family already, if you're given a dog, however you obtain a dog, or if you're around dogs or you know people around dogs. It's the responsibility of humans to be safe first and foremost, and then to get proper information that's, based in some sort of legitimate science, and get your dog's training and understand that they're animals and they have certain needs. And if you hate animals and you hate dogs and you're not interested in any of that, guess what? You want the same thing. You want a safe community. Dogs aren't going anywhere. They're here. So we better figure out how to deal with it logically, because dogs are being killed in America anyway, and I'm sure around the world in shelters and quote-unquote rescues and what have you, en masse. I mean, people don't like to talk about it, but the sad part is that, 2.5 million, 5 million dogs, 2.5 million pit bulls, quote unquote pit bull type dogs in shelters are killed every year, and another 2.5 million just, dogs of whatever type. So you have 5-6 million dogs a year being killed just because of overcrowding or prejudice or whatever it is. And there you go. It's just a math problem. And if people were better educated, then there would be less concern and dogs wouldn't be in the trouble they're in. And that's really the bottom line, is education is hard to come by.
So Drayton, we're in the business of understanding dogs. On a slightly different tangent there, with regards to the pits that are taught to fight and they are fighting pits, because we all know they're out there, is there any hope for them? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for them?
Well, first of all, I mean, I loathe to take anybody's definition of a fight dog or a fight pit, because first of all, I'm suspect of who's judging dog behavior unless I know who they are and exactly what their criteria is. Far too many dogs are judged fight dogs or this, that, when really what they are is they're just scared dogs caught up in a bad situation, and they're there for breeding and protection, and there might be 1 or 2 dogs caught up in that dog fighting ring that are actually, for whatever reason, are able to withstand it and actually fight. So first of all, we have to clear that up. I think there's this problem with the media and lay people and people who don't really do the research to think that, oh, geez, there's like pit bull dogs who are fight dogs and they're in this situation where they're dangerous. A lot of those dogs are just scared and they're just shut down and they're not doing much of anything. And if you look at the dogs that were taken from I loathe to say his name, the football player there a number of years back, those dogs were able to transition out and live normal, happy, healthy lives. And the ones that couldn't were damaged because they were abused. Not because they were, maniacal creatures who were going to tear up the neighborhood. And again, there's this thought that fight dogs are these monsters. Fight dogs, honestly, the dogs who are sound enough to live that life and deal with all that stuff, they're very sound dogs. They don't bite people. They don't just fight dogs at will. They're really sound. But when they're in that 16 by 16 box or whatever it is that people choose to use for their fighting and so forth, that dog will probably do what it is there to do. And this is another distinction that people don't understand. They think that just, these dogs are just going to go and fight all these dogs. They're not. And when dogs get into fights at dog parks or in public places or in backyards, there's a lot of contributing factors that may lead to that dog getting into a dog fight in that particular moment that has nothing to do with its genetics or its lineage. It may also be better equipped to handle itself, but you could say that about a 100-pound shepherd or a 90-pound Rottweiler. They're just bigger, more substantial dogs. But you could say the same thing about a 40-pound dog that's just built muscular, that can handle itself better in one of those tense situations. So to call a dog a fight dog, you really need to know what you're talking about, first and foremost. And second of all, people get away with it all the time, and they should just not say anything because they don't know what they're talking about.
Now that's quite a that's an understandable answer. But one of the things that
Well, let me ask you guys a question right now, real serious, real talk. Could either one of you vet a dog at 6 months and determine if it was going to be a fight dog or a cattle dog?
Could we vet a specific...
Yeah, in other words, if I took both of you to a shelter and we said, all right, give us this 6-month-old pit bull dog. And now we're not going to do anything, like we're not going to go fight it or anything, but we're going to run it through a number of paces to see how social it is, how it plays with dogs, how well it would deal with drop it and hectic situations like a la maybe like a cattle situation, and how well it would be able to deal with all the training required. If you say yeah, then okay, then we can have a real talk about fight dogs. If not, then... I don't even want to talk about it because far too many people talk about it, and I really don't think they really know what they're talking about. And I've never trained a dog to be a fight dog, but I've read a lot about what they do and so forth and so on. And I know a heck of a lot about training dogs, and I know a heck of a lot about behavior and dog play. So for me, it's real easy to put it together, and I can always see when dogs might be a little bit more prone to, for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reasons, to maybe be a little bit more prone to playing rough, and how 150 years ago I could see a couple of guys who didn't really know much being able to shape that into a dog who goes down and fights dogs on Sunday at the docks. I can see that. But I can also see how I could take the same dog and I could get it to not do that and to shape its play. And someone might say, oh, genetics, genetics, genetics. And I would say, but genetics aren't written in stone. and behavior is much more influenced by the environment and the history with which the dog learns than it is by genetics.
Well,
so to
answer your question, Drayton,
all the time.
Drayton, to answer your question, I think you've got. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You can't, because there are too many variables there to assess that dog at a 6-month-old. He's got adolescence to go through. He's in an unnatural environment. So to say you can assess it would be, I believe, an untruthful answer.
Well, yes and no. If you know what the old timers did and how they were able to get those dogs to be, to just do that stuff, then yeah, you could if you knew. I don't. It's kind of like I look at myself like a profiler, like, when you watch a show about people who are in the FBI, like they know all the moves and so forth of the people they're trying to catch, but they're not doing it. So in other words, I have a very good understanding of how the old timers did this. Now, the new breed of people that are involved in all that now, not that it was ever really gentlemanly back in the day, but it certainly wasn't what it is now, and I'm not justifying either era. It was bad then and all the way up to now, but we're talking about behavior in a specific context, which is two dogs in a pen that's roughly 16 by 16, and that's very specific because that's different than a backyard or a dog park where there's lots of room. And that's the reason why I don't talk about it with people, because unless you really know, most people don't train dogs to, play rough in a small enclosure. To be quite honest, most people are too afraid to.
Now, Drayton, do you think that a lot of the bad reputation that the Pitbull has got is because it is... it attracts the wrong type of people? Let's say, I don't know, without being sued by the Americans, the big ex-football players or basketball players, that are up to no good,
But I'm sure in Spain or England or anywhere, I'm sure that if there's, and I have a very good friend in New Zealand who works with pit bulls and educating people, and we find the same story over and over that, a lot of the incidents that occur with, dog bites that lead to fatalities or lethal bites is that they're in, impoverished areas with people who are already dealing with an economic strain. We also find another common theme with severe dog bite cases or fatalities, domestic violence. So again, the media, they have created a monster so they can sell headlines. It's just that simple. And, is there some myth mixed in there? Yeah. Are these dogs known for being tough? Yeah. Do they have a past to fighting? Yeah. But just remember, when you're talking about fighting, okay, between two animals, typically there's only a couple of scenarios where this would happen between them. It might be during mating, because, dog sex isn't always romantic. It might happen as the dogs are competing over food because, resource guarding is a real thing. Or it might just be a matter of clearing out the space because, we want this. I'm a dog and I'm in the wild and I want this. Now, I'm not talking about domestic behavior. There's other variables. But if you just look at dogs, if you watch any film of dogs in the wild at all, they operate in a different environment. And when you control the environment and you have the environment controlled, there's a responsibility to that. And again, it goes back to education. And it's just like not every retriever is going to be a world-class retriever. Not every American Pit Bull Terrier or Staffordshire Bull Terrier or Pitbull mix or Bully dog is going to be a fight dog or be extra aggressive or harder to work with dogs in play. That's not true. If somebody's already coming to the table and they have a fear or a prejudice, even if it's subconscious, it's going to impede their interactions with the dog. I see this time and time again, whether it's a puppy or whether it's a rescue dog that nobody really knows about the past. And I can give you factual examples of people who just got the wrong information and now everything is wrong. And then they got the right information and literally in 24 hours, everything is better. So it couldn't have been the dog. It had to have been the information. Are there dogs out there that are in trouble with people who do bad things? Definitely. But that's the problem. They're in with people who do bad things. That's why they're doing it.
Here. I completely agree with you. Now, Drayton, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but if people want to find out a little bit more information about yourself and the work that you do, and, of course, the Pitbull breed, where can they do that?
You can check me out at www.pitbullguru.com. And, of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I have another website called www.urban Dawgs, DAWGS.com, and that has links to great videos, and yeah, that's pretty much where you can get a hold of me.
Fantastic. Drayton, it's been a real pleasure, and I knew it would be. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Will we get you back on the show again?
Anytime. I love what you do. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Donna. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Take care, Drayton.
Bye-bye.
There you go.